Because as a woman, as a black woman, as a certified sexologist, as someone who teaches sex classes, I literally have to learn, talk about, discuss, literally be immersed in women's sexuality, like all of the time, right? Even though, of course, I study sexuality from a lot of different perspectives. But when I think about my own sexuality as a woman and how that has, I don't want to say my sexuality has changed, because words words are tricky, right? So you have like how people sexually identify and how people sexually express, and then there's like sexuality, which is being a sexual being, right? I think about myself as a sexual being, and I think about how there was a point in time where, although I was engaging in sex, I did not like sex. Now, within the last like 5 years, I'll say within the last 5 years, all of the work that I've done to learn more about sex and become who I am today, the version of who I am today. Um, Obviously, I'm in a place where I love sex. I'm enjoying sex. I didn't always have the current mindset that I have, but it's a journey, right? Everybody kind of goes through different phases with how they sexually identify and sexually express. And I think that a lot of people get to different points in their sexual journey. Um, you get to different points based on what you obviously experience, or but not just what you experience, but like your mindset and what you are willing to allow yourself to experience, if that makes sense. Um, Let me give you guys an example of what I mean by that. When I was exploring, when I was in a very exploratory phase, actually, I'm always in an exploratory phase. There is so much fun being an explorer when it comes to sex. And that's part of like my mindset shift. But when I started exploring my body and exploring sex more, um, I opened up a lot of different possibilities in what I could experience. So I remember a point in my 20s, for example, where if someone had ever asked me to have a threesome, I would be, no, I'm not doing that. Like, it would have made me question my sexuality if someone was to even ask me to participate in something like that. Fast forward, y'all know I had quite a few threesomes, and threesomes are fun. For me, I don't encourage everyone to have a threesome. It's funny because someone recently asked me for like threesome advice on like how to go about having their first threesome. And she had the threesome and we talked about it after the fact, and obviously I give really good tips, so she said it was fun and she really enjoyed it because she literally did what I told her to do about it. So yeah, I say that to say that I, when I was exploring, when I was on this phase, I opened up my mind to say, like, okay, cool, I'm willing to try this, I'm willing to try that. Now, I think it was like a gradual progression in terms of the things that I allowed myself to be open to exploring. And I'm using the word allowed very intentionally because more often than not, we block ourselves from experiencing pleasure. We block ourselves from experiencing pleasure when it is deemed by society to not be normal, right? Like, most people will judge you if they know that you're doing something that doesn't directly align with what is normal according to society. So more often than not, those kind of desires or those curiosities just go unmet, which I don't encourage, because I think that everybody should be exploring things about themselves and about other people in a way that feels comfortable, in a way that feels safe. And so I'm not someone who condones repressing sexual desires or sexual curiosities. I've always been a very sexually curious person, but because of shame and societal stigmas associated with women's sexuality in particular, I never felt safe and comfortable to really explore that until I made a conscious decision to explore those things. So on today's episode, I kind of want to talk about women's sexuality just in general, talk a little bit about the history, social constructs, how I've seen that play out in my own life. And yeah, that's what we're going to get into today. Welcome to Her None Matters, the podcast that dives headfirst into all things sex, pleasure, and empowerment. I'm Jody, your unapologetic guide to a more liberated sex life. Here we break down taboos, celebrate sexuality, and explore what it means to truly own your pleasure. So whether you're curious, kink-friendly, or just looking for ways to spice things up, you're in the right place. Now let's get to it. So, first, before we even get into the juicy stuff, I want to make it very, very, very clear that exploring your sexuality is healthy. Right? A lot of us experience shame when it came to being sexually curious. More often than not in childhood, in our teen years, like nobody was really encouraged or even felt safe to explore themselves more often than not. That's why like a lot of people tell you like, oh, okay, yeah, like you don't really start having sex for real until you like in your late 20s going into your 30s. Like that's really when you start to have like the best sex of your life. But you really have to give yourself permission to have the best sex of your life, right? Because it's a mindset thing. But if you're curious about any aspect of your own body, you should be able to explore that. You should be able to explore your body, explore your different desires, and honestly make time for that. Like literally schedule you some time to explore yourself, explore the things that you are curious about. I used to literally like consistently masturbate in the middle of the day, like literally on some like midday pick me up type shit. I know I recorded an episode like a while back on like how I just had periods of sporadic masturbation. That was kind of like when I was in that phase, right? Now, I'm trying to see. We 2 weeks into the year when I'm recording this, and I have not solo played. I just lied. I masturbated one time. Since the new year started. And yeah, I masturbated on some like, I'm sleepy, let me put myself to sleep. And I'm trying to think like this is where I'm going with this. My appetite for masturbation has kind of like slowed down a little bit. Because I used to masturbate weekly, and I don't masturbate weekly anymore. I will say this also. I like to masturbate with a partner more than I like to masturbate solo. It's something about the presence of a body next to me, but I'm still masturbating and pleasuring myself, and they're just like watching and experiencing that. That's a little bit more fun to me. Like for me in particular, the fact that I'm an exhibitionist, the fact that I have a praise kink, like I damn near, if I'm gonna like pleasure myself and I'm gonna do some solo play stuff, I would like for someone to like just be right there whispering in my ear, choking me ever so like aggressively, but like still very softly. um and just being right there. Now, of course, I do like also like bringing toys into, you know, partner play when I'm having sexual interactions, but I don't have to be like, I am at a place where, okay, and I don't want y'all to think that I don't love penetration, because I told y'all I like that shit. I love dick. However, I feel like being able to have orgasms absent of penetration forces you to be more creative. And so, even when I think about when I'm masturbating and I'm engaging, you know, in my own type of, you know, my, like, I'm setting the mood for myself, right? Because I've said this before. I fuck myself how I want other people to fuck me. And so when I do that, I have a process for my masturbating sessions. Like, I don't just like hop up and masturbate. Like, I take like a bath or a hot shower, and then I like rub on my body real slowly with lotion and oils, and I like candles and shit because I be wanting stuff to smell good. So I be trying to like really put myself in the mood. And then I go through my hidden videos, and then I found a video and then I watch that shit. And it's crazy because even when I'm doing that, like when I'm engaging in my masturbation sessions, I don't actually have to look at it. So I'll go to the video and then I just listen to it. Like, I put it close to my ear so I can hear what's going on. And then I can just like close my eyes and like visualize, try to like put myself in a fantasy land and visualize a like an alternative to what is happening in the actual video, right? Because obviously I'm in the video, because the videos I watch be of me having sex. So I will I'll listen to these videos and then reimagine a different scenario, but I got this sound to kind of like spark inspiration, if you will. So that's kind of like what I do, and that's what gets me off. And it's funny because like even sometimes when I watch this one particular video of like my male partner like masturbating, I be trying to like, when I'm masturbating, I try to like replicate the rhythm that he's like beating off to. Like, I really be trying to like, oh, like I'm having sex. Cause for me, just sitting there like stimulating myself, like, is, I don't know, like I needed to feel deeper than that. I needed to feel like, I want to say spiritual. I want to use the word spiritual, but I needed to feel like it's more than just like what it is, if that makes sense. I don't know. Let me know if y'all feel me or not. But yes, self-exploration, super healthy. I encourage you all to do it. But also keep in mind that as with all things, you can overuse something. There is a such thing as too much masturbation. Especially when you're doing it to like avoid being productive. I definitely had a period where I was masturbating just because I was bored. And I'm not saying to do away with bored masturbation, because I actually don't have a problem with it now. But it got to a point where I would be late to everything damn near because I was masturbating. So don't be like that. Don't be like me and have like a borderline problem with it. But I don't have a problem, not anymore, because I don't even do it that much anymore. I am more likely to pull out a toy and masturbate after I just had sex, just because like I really like being overstimulated. So there's that. But yeah, let's get into cultural views on women's sexuality, right? Because of course we live in the US. We live in the US and we kind of understand the kind of views when it comes to women's sexuality. So more often than not, women being liberated in their sexuality, owning their sexuality, it's kind of like, it's like a split in the US, right? On the one hand, you have women that are like, no, this is who I am, this is how I sexually express, etc. And you have people that are allies of that messaging and they support it. Then you have a lot of people that are still trying to uphold the stigmas and the negative stereotypes associated with female sexuality. You still have people trying to uphold the patriarchal order. That's basically what it comes down to, right? And trying to keep outdated views of sexuality as the norm, which is very problematic for a lot of different reasons, right? Because old views are the reason for rape culture. Old views are the reason for a lot of abuse taking place, because a lot of people don't feel comfortable having these conversations around sex. And in turn, if you don't feel comfortable asking questions about sex or even advocating for yourself, you are way more likely to experience some sort of sexual assault and or abuse. So I will say that while we're trying to make steps in the right direction, we still have a long ways to go in the US before we can begin to say, like, okay, cool, this is a sexually liberated country. Because right now it's not. Like, every time we try to get like a little closer to sexual liberation, we stray away. We stray away, and I hate that for us. But it's not just, obviously, the issues around women's sexuality is not just in the US. But the drive for taking agency over your sexuality is also not limited to the US's either. There are many African tribes that have traditions associated with embracing and celebrating female sexuality. Of course, in India, I want to say the most popular thing we know from coming that as sex goes, one of the most popular things as it relates to sex that came out of India is the Kama Sutra book, right? So a lot of people look to ancient Indian teachings for understanding that connectedness with not just within your own body and within self, but when you engage in partner play, right? Earlier I said, sex for me has to feel spiritual on some level. Like, I want to feel like my body, and then like the essence of who I am, my existence, my soul are like, they're together, but they're separating, right? Like, I want to feel like I'm watching myself have sex, if that makes sense. Like, I want an outer body experience. And I still want that experience even when I masturbate. Like, I don't depend on a partner to give me that experience, because that is an experience that I enjoy and something that I want. So I'm very intentional with setting the tone for myself, like when I engage in solo play, because how I fuck myself is how I'm like, okay, cool. When there is someone here, it should be double great, because I've already kind of like, I understand what it is that needs to take place. So now I'm just sharing that with someone else. So that's kind of like how I view it. I do want to get into a myth that I hate. Like, I hate that it's normalized in society, and I think that we have to do something about it. So the myth is that women are less sexual than men. They're not, like, at all. The fact that people think women are less sexual is just rooted in very old, outdated studies and teachings around female sexuality, because female sexuality has been misunderstood for a very, very, very long time. Literally, the full clitoral structure was not discovered until 1997. So it's clear that people are just now understanding where the clit is, to be quite frankly. And so when people continue to say like, oh, men will be men, or acting as if men's sex drive or sexual desire or their sexualities as a whole, just being born male, will make someone more likely to want to have sex more, that has nothing to do with anything. It truly doesn't. It's a lot of different things that goes into what makes you desire sex. And so you have like your natural, like just your natural kind of like sex drive, right? But then when you are doing different things when it comes to your body, that can increase or decrease your sex drive. So if you work out, it's a great chance that you desire sex more than someone that does not work out. If, for example, you are eating healthy foods and different foods that kind of like will increase your sex drive, you're more likely to, of course, desire sex than someone that's eating like, I don't know, pizza puffs every fucking day, right? So it's, there are some benefits, of course, to how you do one thing is how you're going, it's gonna like trickle into the different aspects of your life. So if you are eating right, if you are taking care of your body is going to want more things that feel good, and that could easily translate into sex, right? So yeah, that myth of women being less sexual than men, I mean, it's been debunked by multiple studies already. I don't know why we're not singing these to the at the top of the tallest mountain, but there's been plenty of anthropological studies that show that women historically have been seen as very sexual beings. It wasn't until honestly the Victorian era where a lot of religions began to associate your sexual pleasure and the way in which you sexually express with your moral code. So back then they were saying, okay, if you like to have sex, you are immoral. So you don't have no morals. Sex is only for reproductive reasons, and if you are doing anything outside of that, then you are spilling the seed. That's where all that kind of religious I want to say propaganda, religious rhetoric comes from. The appropriate word is rhetoric. I wanted to use propaganda because that's it, it's also that. But yeah, many early cultures saw women as very sexually expressive. That's why we hear of like the Aphrodites, right? Like we hear about Greek goddesses that became symbols of love and sexuality, right? Even when you think about in African cultures, Oshun and other deities like that, they were symbols of literal sexuality, right? And so yeah, honestly, the medieval Victorian era is kind of like fucked up Western culture, and that's when people began to say, okay, cool, if you are a woman who enjoys sex, you will be diagnosed with hysteria and all types of crazy shit. Like they really try to make it seem as though women were mentally ill for enjoying sex, because back then the thought, the theory was that women's sexual desires are tied to men's sexual desires. Because as a woman, how do you want to have sex if the man doesn't want to have sex? That sounds very crazy to say out loud, like very crazy. And that's also why I do not like when people like recently on social media they say like, oh, women's sex drive is tied to how a man treats you. How? So if a man is not even present in my life, am I now not supposed to have any sexual desire? Like that question or that status that is circulating is literally tied to very, very, very sexually repressive ideology, and we need to get rid of it, guys. Like we truly do. It's a lot of shit as it relates to like women's bodies and women's sexuality that kind of like grinds my gears when I see it. That being one of them though. Like I really hate that status that I feel like every year it pops up in my news feed, in my social media feed saying like, oh yeah, if a man treats me right, then I want to, I'm more likely to want to have sex. No, because that actually seems super transactional when you think about it. That means that if that is true, if we are saying women's sexual desire is tied to how a man treats them, that also enables men to fake it. They can just dangle whatever special treatment in front of you until they get the pussy. And now it's like, oh, okay, I did what I knew would get the draws type shit. So I don't like that. Because here's the thing too. I've had guys like take me out on dates and, we've had a good time. It did not make me want to fuck them. Like at all. Just didn't. And so that does not mean that these men did not treat me well. They treated me very well. I've been fortunate enough to not deal with a lot of men that don't treat me well. Also, I don't deal with men like that. Like, I'm a very easily annoyed person. And so I don't deal with people like that. So I definitely ain't dealing with men like that. Like, I have to, like, mentally prepare myself to deal with men. And so when I am dealing with men, I don't get bad treatment. So I'll say that, right? That does not mean that I want to fuck them every time they, shoot me a fucking good morning text. Like, no, that's not how that works over here. I challenge you guys to think about what makes you want to have sex with somebody versus not. Me personally, on the one hand, it's like, okay, cool, you cannot be mean to me, of course, because I'm not going to like you as a person. It's a certain way that you have to talk to me because, again, it's certain things that I just don't tolerate. Like, I don't like men that yell at me. I get very triggered when people raise their voice above a certain thing. And I'm not saying that if you're a loud person, you can't be loud, because I'm a loud person. I'm like a very fucking loud person. But I don't yell at people. Like, I'm not trying to yell at someone like they're my child. I have a huge issue with a man doing that to me. Like, if you yell at me, I'm not talking to you ever again. Like, we ain't even gonna argue because I don't like arguing. But yeah, I just really don't like that status that floats around saying like, oh, women's sexuality is tied to how men treat them. No, it's not. That's actually rooted in that other myth that women's sexuality is tied to men's desires, and it's not. It just fucking isn't. It's just not the reality of the case. Yeah, honestly, it wasn't until like recently, like dead ass recently, where people began to, of course, you have the feminist movements of the 1960s and 70s that began to change things. But honestly, like every decade, again, we're trying to take steps in the right direction as it relates to women's sexuality and understanding women's sexuality more. But we also, like, again, we still have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do in terms of just sexual education across the board, so that women's sexuality is not so much of a mystery. I think the biggest thing has been that because of historically, since women's sexuality was often repressed and seen as something mystical, and you can't really explore something that on a societal level we're saying like, oh no, like we're either oversimplifying women's sexuality or we're saying that it shouldn't be studied at all, because there are way more studies on dicks than there are on clits, and that just is what it is. But I want us to, as we are like closing out this episode, I want us to think about what we can do. Like, what is literally within our power to do as it relates to female sexuality, right? If you are a man listening, because a lot of you guys are men that listen to my show, think about ways that you can like really be an explorer of the female body, right? Really take your time. Y'all know how I feel about foreplay. Foreplay lasting 18 to 40 minutes. Like literally take your time, because there's like some exciting shit on the other end of taking your time, right? There are like different avenues, different things that you can unlock within your female partners if you just took your time. You will notice different things. You will figure out different things. You don't have to rush to discover any of these things. Like literally appreciate the journey of exploring. Women, I'm going to tell you guys to fuck yourself the way you want to be fucked. Take your time with yourself. And when you take your time with yourself and then advocate for the things that you actually enjoy and the things that you want sexually, then your partner will slow down. Like, it's okay to say, slow down. I want you to do it like this. Can we try that, right? As opposed to just sitting back and allowing people to do whatever they want to you. All right? It should be pleasurable for both of y'all. You shouldn't show up getting fucked, okay? When you begin to have sex with yourself the way you want other people to have sex with you, then again, you kind of invite that kind of patient energy into your life. And you're also able to easily identify when people don't align with what you want sexually, because you can always have conversations around certain topics and get their ideas or get their thoughts on certain things before you even engage in sex. And then once you realize that they don't align with what you want sexually, then move the fuck around. Like, it's not even that deep. Like, nobody should be experiencing bad sex. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all today. If you're listening to this episode and you enjoyed it, please be sure to like, rate, review, all that good shit. I am building out the Patreon. There are multiple tiers. So, some of the tiers include the Skinamax Movie Club, where we will be watching movies together, movies with sex scenes specifically, and we will be dissecting and analyzing the sex scenes. I'm super excited about that. We will be hopping on Zoom calls together and talking about the movies. It's like a book club, but with movies. So, yeah, looking forward to that. If you subscribe to the Her Nut Matters tier, you will get all raw, unedited episodes. There will be nothing cut out of the episodes, in addition to getting bonus episodes. So bonus episodes that you will not hear or see anywhere else except on Patreon. All right. As well as like monologues, like I'm gonna do car chronicles, just random stuff that is happening in my life. You will hear about it. Some stuff I don't really talk about on the actual podcast. In the Patreon, I'm gonna be talking about that shit. So there's that tier. There is another tier called the Girl 6'9" tier. And earlier in this episode, I talked about how I like to listen to the audio of my sex tapes. Well, guess what? Y'all gonna hear actual audio footage of me having sex. So looking forward to that one as well. That is going to be crazy. So that is the Girl 6'9" tier. If you are someone with an oralism kink, that means that you get turned on by hearing stuff. Also, if you like a voyeur, you might enjoy this tier as well. Or if y'all just some freaky kinky motherfuckers that want to hear me moaning, guess what? Sign up for it. I also have a exclusive sex coaching tier, which is where I will be doing all video demonstrations and tutorials. If you are someone that has been curious about sex coaching but don't really want to do the one-on-one thing necessarily, guess what? This tier is for you. And then if you love me, there's the VIP tier. And you get all that shit. everything that's in all of those tiers wrapped into the VIP tier. That's what you get, in addition to more bonus episodes and monologues than all of the other tiers. So that's what y'all can look forward to. And Patreon, I'm excited about that because it means that I will definitely be. I'm excited about the Girl 6ix9ine tier because that means I'm gonna have to do quite a bit of fucking and masturbating and recording the audio. So yeah, there's that. And yeah, even with the Her Nut Matters tier, I am going to start doing exclusive Patreon episodes with some of my listeners as well. So I want this to be a very engaging, interactive, inclusive community for us, right? So choose the tier that you feel is right for you. Based on what I described, I did post a tier chart on the Her Nut Matters Instagram page. If you're not following the Her Nut Matters Instagram page, just go do that. If you're not following my personal page, just go do that. Like, I don't know what to tell y'all. Instagram don't miss shit. So, I hope y'all enjoyed this episode. And yeah, that's it. I'll see y'all later. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to Her Nut Matters. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share the pleasure with others. Follow us on Instagram at Her Nut Matters to stay updated on everything we have going on. Remember, pleasure is power. Go out there and own yours. Catch you next time.